Combat Rogue is one of the most fun rogue specs you can play, and Cataclysm Classic is no different. I'm going to show you everything you need to know to hit the ground running and succeed. Starting off with which race to play. If you're going Alliance, I would advise going Worgen. 1 for the Dark Flight racial. It's a movement speed cooldown we can use every 2 minutes, getting you from A to B or out of the fire, etc. The second reason is the Viciousness racial, increasing your crit chance by a further 1%. And if you are looking at going Horde, then I would recommend going Troll, as they have a berserking ability, increasing attack speed on a cooldown as well. It's basically a mini Heroism or Bloodlust. For the stat priority, we are of course going to want Agility as our main and most prioritised stat on our gear, adding attack power and critical strike derived from the agility we gain. We then want to get our hit rating to the cap, which is going to be 8%, and after that we're going to get our expertise to 26. Similar to hit rating, expertise actually reduces the chance that an enemy can dodge or parry our attacks. Then it's going to be haste, increasing our attack speed and also our energy regeneration, which is the main resource we have as a combat rogue. Lastly, it's mastery and then critical strike. If you're not sure what our mastery does, it's called main gauche. Your main attacks have a 26% chance to grant you an attack that deals damage equal to 100% of your main hand attack. Each point of mastery is going to increase that chance by a further 2%. Basically, we're just going to be doing extra auto attacks from our mastery. For the talents, I'm sure nobody's shocked, we're putting most points into the combat tree. Starting off with 3 out of 3 in precision. This is going to massively help you get that hit rating, as this is going to improve your hit rating by 6%, meaning we only need a further 2% to hit the cap. Then we're going to go into improved Sinister Strike, increasing the damage of that ability and reducing its energy cost. This is one of our main attacks we're going to be using to build combo points. We have a few different resources as a combat rogue. One up left here is our energy, and secondary, we're going to actually have certain abilities which generate combo points up to 5, and then we're going to spend those combo points with what's known as a combo point finisher. Sinister Strike is one of our main combo point builders. Lastly, we're putting 2 out of 2 into improved Recuperate, causing our Recuperate ability to restore an additional 1% of our maximum health and reduces all damage taken by 6% while that ability is active, therefore working as a defensive. We're putting 2 out of 2 into Slice and Dice, increasing the duration of that ability by 50%. If you don't know what Slice and Dice is, here it is. It's our #1 priority finisher, and you can see here that depending on how many combo points we consume, it's going to last for longer, 5 points being 41 seconds. And that's going to increase your attack speed by 40%. So we want to keep this up at all times to massively improve our attack speed. And because of this talent, we're going to be increasing the duration by 50%. We've got 3 out of 3 into Aggression, increasing the damage of our Sinister Strike again, Backstab and Eviscerate, a few of our abilities we're going to be using. Reinforced Leather, increasing the armor we get from the items we're wearing massively by 50%, and therefore enhancing our survivability. And Lightning Reflexes, increasing our chance to dodge enemy attacks by 9%, and also increasing our attack speed by 6% as well, adding again our attack speed and also our defensives. We've then got another ability, Revealing Strike. I'm going to talk more through about that in the rotation part of this video. Going down, we've got 3 out of 3 into Combat Potency, giving your successful offhand melee attacks and your main gauche attacks a 20% chance to generate 15 energy. Remember, main gauche is our mastery effect, where we're going to be actually doing extra attacks. And of course, the faster we're actually attacking, like from Slice and Dice and other abilities, meaning we've got a higher and higher chance to get those extra main gauche attacks from our auto attacks. Adrenaline Rush, another ability going down into Killing Spree. I'm going to talk about these two as well in the rotation part. Savage Combat, increasing our total attack power by 6%, increasing our damage, and all physical damage caused to enemies you have poisoned is increased by 4%. We are going to be applying our weapons with poisons. We've got Restless Blades. Your damaging finishing moves reduce the cooldown of some of our other cooldowns by 2 seconds per combo point spent. And then Bandit's Guile. This is a really interesting talent. Your Sinister Strike and Revealing Strike. Revealing Strike is this one here. So these are our two main combo point builders, basically, that we're talking about. Have a 100% chance to grant you an evolving insight into an opponent's defences, increasing damage to that target by up to 30%. Opponents can adapt over time, negating this benefit, and striking a different opponent will begin the cycle anew. When we use 4 combo point builders, you can see we're going to get the insight. Up left, up top right here, you can see I've got shallow insight at the moment. Your insight into your target's defences grant you additional 10% damage to that target. If I then use another 4 combo point generators, we're then going to get another one. And you can see I've got, again, shallow insight. And there's 3 different ones that you can get. Now, if we're actually switching targets, I want to mention something very important here, and that is redirect. Transfers any existing combo points to the current enemy target, as well as any insight gained from Bandit's Guile. Requires active combo points. This is on a 1-minute cooldown. If you're moving from one target to the other, those insights that you can get by using 4 different combo point generators, like our shallow insight, will actually direct onto the other target with your combo points if you use the redirect ability. Lastly, we're putting a few talents into subtlety and also assassination. Relentless strikes going into subtlety. Your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point restore some extra energy for you. And then 3 out of 3 into Coup de Grace. Increases the damage done by your Eviscerate ability by 20%. That's one of our main finishers. 2 out of 2 into Lethality, increasing the critical strike damage of some of our abilities. And 2 out of 2 into Ruthlessness, giving your melee finishing moves a 40% chance to add a combo point to our target. Meaning when we use a finisher like Eviscerate or Slice and Dice, we've actually got a chance to get back a combo point. For the glyphs, we've got Glyph of Sinister Strike. Your Sinister Strike have an additional 20% chance to add an additional combo point, because our main goal with our combo point generators is to, of course, get to 5 combo points as quickly as possible to then use those big finishing skills. Glyph of an Adrenaline Rush, increasing the duration of it. That's a cooldown we're going to be using. And Glyph of Slice and Dice, increasing the duration of it again by 6 seconds. Onto the major glyphs we're taking. Glyph of Feint, reducing the energy cost of it by 20. That is this ability here. Basically, it reduces your threat by 5%, making the enemy less likely to attack you, and reduces damage you take from AoE effects. Glyph of Tricks of the Trade, removing the energy cost of that ability, but reducing the recipient's damage bonus by 5%. That's this ability here on a 30-second cooldown. The threat caused by your next damaging attack and all actions taken for 6 seconds afterwards will be transferred to the target party or raid members. And it's going to increase the damage they do. So it's a fantastic way of mitigating threat, especially when you go into combat. You could, for example, put this on the tank, meaning they're going to get some of your threat for a short duration, which will dissipate, but by that point they should be fine and increasing their damage. And we can use this every 30 seconds to help do more damage indirectly by another party or raid member. We've got Glyph of Sprint, meaning the movement speed by sprint is actually increased. That's this ability here. Basically increases your movement speed by now 100% by 8 seconds. A fantastic mobility cooldown we have on 1 minute. And on our minor ones, Blurred Speed, that same ability, Sprint, we can now walk on water with it. We've then got Glyph of Poisons, where you apply your poisons to your weapon 50% faster. You do need to buy your poisons. You can get them, for example, in Stormwind by this dirty dealer over here. Jasper Fell, Shady Dealer, he sells your poisons. And Glyph of Safe Fall, increasing the distance of your Safe Fall ability, meaning you can fall without taking any damage. If you're not sure which poisons to buy, get Instant Poison, which has a chance to do instant damage on your main hand, and on your offhand, put Deadly Poison, which is a stacking effect of a dot, which is damage over time poison. So how does it all come together then into the actual rotation? It's really quite a simple rotation. Start with, in single target, we're going to build our combo points by spamming Sinister Strike. An instant strike causing 300 damage in addition to 150% of your normal weapon damage, awarding 1 combo point. Sometimes it will do more. And then our main finisher is going to be Slice and Dice, keeping this up at all times on our target. And if it is about to expire, or I say on the target, it is actually going to be on you because it's increasing your attack speed, but keeping it up at all times nevertheless. And then casting Eviscerate as our filler or main usage finisher. Basically, the more points, the more damage it does. And that is pretty much it for the single target rotation. It's actually ridiculously simple. If you are looking for something a bit more in-depth, then I would go with Assassination Rogue. Still fairly simple, but just not as simple as Combat. Combat, in my opinion, is too simple. There is one other thing we can use, which is our Revealing Strike, an instant weapon strike that deals 125% of weapon damage and increases the effectiveness of your next offensive finishing move. it awards 1 combo point. Specifically, you're going to use this instead of Sinister Strike if you have 4 combo points, and only if you have 4. You can see here, I've got 4 combo points, then we can use Revealing Strike, and then we'll use Eviscerate to consume that effect. Sometimes, when you use Sinister Strike, it will generate 2 combo points, meaning at 3 combo points, you could use Sinister Strike, and you're going to get 5, meaning you skip Revealing Strike and go straight into Eviscerate. Only use Revealing Strike if you are at 4 combo points. No more and no less. Otherwise, it is actually a DPS loss. There is also Rupture. This is a dot finishing move. We don't use it in combat. I have actually tested this, and it is, again, a DPS loss to use it. It's not an assassination. It's actually really useful in that spec, but for combat, it's just not as good. Just cycling through Eviscerate and Mutilate, etc. is actually better DPS for you. If you are doing a multi-target rotation, if there is literally tons and tons of enemies, then we can just spam our Fan of Knives. You do require a ranged weapon for this, and you can, a thrown weapon, and you can actually apply deadly poison to that thrown weapon, and you're just going to spam Fan of Knives. If there's only a few targets, you can use your Blade Dance. While active, the rogue's attacks strike an additional nearby opponent, but energy regeneration is reduced by 30%. So if there's like 2 targets, for instance, you can just do Blade Flurry, and then you can quite literally just do your normal single target rotation, and it will hit both targets. And you can toggle that on and off whenever you need to. Looking at the cooldowns we have 2 main ones, Adrenaline Rush and Killing Spree. First up, Adrenaline Rush is increasing your energy regeneration by 100% and your melee attack speed by 20% for 20 seconds. One thing I want to say on this is that you should use it with Heroism and Bloodlust and things like that. Because you're going to get so much haste from Bloodlust or Heroism, you are likely, with the increased energy regeneration from Adrenaline Rush, going to be way overcapping your energy, which you may think is a waste, which it is. That is true. It is a waste of energy because you'll be overcapping so much with all that extra haste and energy regen. However, because of the extra attack speed you get from Adrenaline Rush, using it with Heroism and Bloodlust is overall still going to be a DPS gain. Then on to Killing Spree. Step through the shadows from enemy to enemy within 10 yards, attacking an enemy every 0.5 seconds with both weapons until 5 assaults are made. It can be done on the same target. You don't need multiple, and increasing all damage done to 20% of the duration. You do actually want to use this as well at a low energy, not because it regenerates any energy itself, but while this attack is channeling, you will be obviously generating energy and not spending it, and therefore you don't want to overcap on your energy in the time that it is channeling. Now that we've got the main rotations and cooldowns out of the way, let's have a look at some of the utilities we have at our disposal. First up, there's Kick. This is basically your interrupt for spellcasting. Very simple there. We've already spoken about Redirect. Vanish is an interesting one where you can basically go into stealth for a short amount of time. Sprint we've spoken about. Evasion is a defensive cooldown you have at your disposal, increasing your dodge chance by 50% and reducing the chance that range attacks may hit you by 25%. And then Feint. Performs a feint causing no damage, but lowering your threat by 5%, making your enemies less likely to attack you. In addition, reduces the damage you are going to take from area of effects by 50% for 6 seconds. We have an insane amount of utility at our disposal for incapacitating, blinding, and disorienting, and incapacitating, I think I've already said, our target as a rogue, and I just want to highlight some of those abilities very quickly for you. We have Cheap Shot, which is a stealth-requiring stun. We also have Kidney Shot, that is a stun at various lengths, depending on how many combo points used. And Expose Armor, reducing their armor percentage. If you're in a raid, a lot of other classes can actually cover this for you, and it generally isn't something we'll be using ourselves. We have another defensive, Combat Readiness, where you enter a heightened state of awareness, deflecting enemy weapon attacks. With increasing effectiveness, successive attacks will deal 10% less damage per application, stacking 5 times. But if 10 seconds eclipse without any incoming weapon damage, this state will end. Another really useful one for getting health back is Recuperate, finishing move that consumes combo points on any nearby target to restore 4% of max health every 3 seconds. At 5 points, this is at 30 seconds. Generally, you're probably not going to use this in a raid much, because obviously we have healers, etc., unless you really need to help them out. But when you're out and about and questing and just need some kind of sustained health gain, this can be a really, really useful ability, especially for fighting up against a big, nasty elite. We've got Cloak of Shadows, another 2-minute cooldown that basically gets rid of any spell effects on you. We can disarm traps, we can pick those pockets. And we've got things like smoke bombs, where you can create a cloud of smoke where basically nobody can target anyone standing in the smoke bomb. You are untargetable. Sap incapacitates an enemy for 1 minute, and Distract is another distraction spell that we do have at our disposal. As you can see, rogues have a lot of utility. For the professions and consumables, etc., we're going to be using, above my head and shoulders, you're going to see there's a head and shoulders enchant. I know, it's the worst joke I've ever told, but I think I've said it in nearly every video, so gold. You're going to need Ramkehen in Uldum and Pharazane reputations to get these. You can see here that you need Exalted for Pharazane. There is a revered version as well, which obviously isn't as good, but if you're not at Exalted yet, then that is fine. You can get the lesser version, adding Agility Haste and Agility Mastery. For your gems, I would go for the Delicate Inferno Ruby in your red slot, adding Agility. The Adept Ember Topaz, adding 20 Agility and Mastery in the yellow slot. And in the blue slot, the Glinting Demon's Eye, adding 20 Agility and hit rating if you have not already got on your hit cap. Remember, we have got 6% hit from our talents, and therefore you may or may not need this depending on your gear. But then there's also Reforging, so, you know, we could go into that all day. Agile Shadow Spirit Diamond is your meta gem, adding agility and crit effect. And then for the professions, I would recommend enchanting and agility. Generally, unless you're absolutely min-maxing, it doesn't matter that much. They are all pretty similar, but I think enchanting and mixology are the best. Enchanting adds 40 agility to each ring, so 80 agility over both of them. And no, if you get rid of enchanting, you don't get to keep the enchants, or they won't be active at least. Mixology adds an effect to your flask, making it better, basically. And then for your main weapon enchant, which is the other really important one, we're going to go with Landslide, increasing attack power. Then, the consumables you're using, it's Flask of the Winds for agility, Potion of the Tolvir, you're going to use in your burst window, use this in Heroism when you're using your Adrenaline Rush, etc., increasing agility by 1200 for 25 seconds, Skewered Eel, increasing agility and stamina, and the Mythical Healing Potion, increasing health. And that's pretty much the main ones that you will be using as a combat rogue. That is pretty much all of the basics you need to know to play combat rogue in Cataclysm Classic. However, I'm now going to go over some more advanced features, helping you really understand the depth of the class now that we've got the foundations covered off. If you really want to excel at playing rogue, you need to understand how your combo points and energy regeneration really truly work on a deeper level, and how your poisons work and how actually they affect which weapons you are choosing to use. Yes, really, it does go that in depth. And also Bandit's Guile and how we can benefit from it at a maximum efficiency. Let's start off with combo points and the energy regeneration we're getting. As a rogue, we're very obviously needing energy to be used to spend combo points and generate them. As a default, we have 100 energy, and we're actually going to be regenerating 10 energy per second. But it is then increased by our melee haste, which is going to be our haste rating, plus any haste enhancing buffs like Bloodlust or Heroism. We also have the Vitality passive, increasing energy regen by 25% and also our attack power. We also have the Combat Potency talent, giving your successful offhand melee attacks and main gauche, which is our mastery attacks, a 20% chance to generate an additional 15 energy. Don't forget, there's also the Relentless Strikes talent we've got, where your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to restore 25 energy. And, of course, our big, juicy, big daddy Adrenaline Rush cooldown, increasing energy regen by 100%, and our melee attack speed by 20% for 20 seconds, which, as I said before, you should actually use with Heroism and Bloodlust. Even though you're going to be capping over your energy usages, or your cap, you are going to want to try and spend as much in that window as possible to overcap as least as possible. But overall, even if you do overcap it, it's still going to be a DPS increase. But I think I said that really convoluted, but hopefully you understand. The main way that we're going to be looking at it is that the faster we're attacking, and therefore getting energy, is going to be the faster that we can get out of Sinister Strikes, and therefore how many eviscerates we can actually fit between our Slice and Dice uptimes. Remember, Slice and Dice is going to go up for 41 seconds when we use it at 5 combo points, and then in between refreshing it, we want to fit in as many eviscerates as we can. If you are in your Blade Flurry, don't forget that your energy regeneration is going to be massively slowed down, however, when you are attacking more than one target. It's also important to note that some abilities like our Sinister Strike will actually sometimes be adding more than one combo point, and we do need to be very watchful of this to make sure we're not overcapping on our combo points where possible. Hence why at 4 combo points, we're going to use our Revealing Strike rather than Sinister Strike. And also with the Ruthlessness talent, we have a chance that our finishing moves will actually add a combo point back onto the target after we've consumed them. Now onto something that on the face of it looks very simple, but is actually quite in-depth as well, and that is our poisons and weapon choices. As a combat rogue, we're generally going to be using 2 out of 3 poisons, which are deadly, instant, and even the wound poison. Just going back over what these individual ones do, instant poison has a chance to do instant nature damage. Deadly poison has a chance that each strike can damage your enemy for X amount of nature damage over 12 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. And then once it's stacked to 5 times, each application of deadly poison will actually cause the poison on the rogue's other weapon to apply. The third one, which I didn't talk about earlier, is wounding poison. Each strike has a chance of poisoning the enemy, causing nature damage and reducing all healing effects used on them by 25% for 15 seconds. While we can clearly see with deadly poison that it's got a 30% chance on each strike, we don't really know how often the other ones are actually going to apply. But don't worry, you've got me. The number of applications per minute is actually fixed for these poisons, which many people don't realise. And for instant poison, which is this one here, that's actually going to be between 9 and 10 a minute. And for your wounding poison, it's actually going to be 24 a minute. No matter how good your haste is or your weapon speed, this is never going to change, and it is stuck at a hard cap on these numbers. That means if you can perform 48 normal attacks with melee in a single minute with your wound poison, then each of them attacks technically have a 50% chance to apply that poison. Whereas if you can only apply 24 normal attacks in a 1 minute gap, then it's actually got a 100% chance of applying, because it's capped out at how many can go on in a minute. If you're thinking, okay, but how does that actually make a difference into what I'm doing? Well, it matters because of your weapon speed. Meaning, on your main hand weapon, which is where we're going to be putting our instant or wound poison, a slower weapon actually increases the chance of applying the poison that we're putting on it, because we're doing less melee attacks with it in a minute duration, and therefore it's a higher chance of applying those poisons at the hard capped amount within that duration. And this is really important because the per minute effect that's hard capped only affects your normal attacks and not your special attacks, meaning things like Sinister Strike we can actually use to be generating those poisons, and if it's on a slower weapon, we have a higher chance of our Sinister Strike to actually apply a poison effect, even though technically our Sinister Strike isn't really affected by our weapon's actual attack speed. It will still have a higher chance of applying it from Sinister Strike if we have a slower weapon. Hopefully that makes sense. Just to recap it, the slower your weapon, the higher chance your normal attacks have at applying a poison. Therefore, it also applies to Sinister Strike, because that's a normal attack, they see it as, or as a non-special attack, meaning because that's on the global cooldown and it isn't really actually directly affected by weapon speed, we can have a higher chance at putting more poisons on our target from things like Sinister Strike if our main hand weapon is slower. Another thing to note is that wound poison is actually more potent than your instant poison, even if it does less damage than instant poison. It's because of, obviously, wound poison can be put on more times per minute. And if you want to try and convince yourself about this, try spamming Fan of Knives on a dummy with your thrown weapon imbued with deadly poison, and then repeat it with instant poison. And you'll actually see that wound poison is a clear winner, which is actually quite interesting. But basically, it's all very complicated what I'm saying, but if you just test each one out, you'll just go, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, I can see that is actually higher. And that's all you need to actually think about into it. Because deadly poison just has a flat 30% chance of applying, we want to put this on our fastest weapon, and therefore our offhand weapon should be our fastest weapon. We want to be attacking with it quick, meaning we're getting more 30% chances of applying that poison. Once it stacks to 5, we're then actually going to be putting on our other poison, so our wound or instant, from our other weapon as well, meaning that your deadlier poison can actually impact the main hand poison as well. Another thing that dictates your weapon choices is that the slower weapon is actually going to end up doing more damage with your Sinister Strike and your Revealing Strike. And your offhand should be as fast as possible because of your mastery, main gauche, where your main hand attacks have a 20% chance to grant you an attack that deals damage equal to 100% of your main hand attack. And also your combat potency talent, where your successful offhand melee attacks and main gauche attacks have a 20% chance to generate 15 energy. Meaning, the quicker that we're again getting out attacks with that offhand weapon, the more energy we're actually going to be regenerating, and therefore the more sinister strikes, the more combo points and more eviscerates we can get in. Another thing to mention is your tricks of the trade. Now, I did mention before it can help with threat generation, etc. on your tank. If your tank isn't really struggling with threat gen, and they do have a lot more of it now that we're in Cataclysm rather than Wattlk, then you can put this on one of your best performing DPS players to actually enhance how much damage they are doing rather than the tank. But just do be careful in case there is any threat issues around this. It doesn't cost any energy to actually use this ability because of the glyph we're putting in here. However, it is going to cost you a global cooldown. A global cooldown, of course, being when you use an attack and the time being before you can use your next one. To maximize the usage on not wasting a global cooldown of this, we're generally going to want to try and use tricks of the trade when we're waiting for energy to regenerate before we're using our next attack, like here, where we've not got any energy. Because remember, tricks of the trade uses no energy, but will cost a global cooldown. So if we've got loads of energy available, we're kind of wasting that global cooldown, whereas if we're waiting for energy to regenerate, that's a perfect time to use it, because we're not wasting that GCD. And the only last thing I want to mention is recuperate. I mentioned this before at how generally we may not be using it much in raids, but it can help with healing. I just want to point out that you should remember that because of the improved recuperate talent we have taken, causing your recuperate ability to restore an additional 1% of your maximum health and reduce all damage taken by 6% while it's active. So it isn't just a heal, but also a defensive as well. And you should use it in raids where appropriate if you do need to be massively reducing your damage taken. And that is it. That is all of the advanced things that I believe you need to know to play Combat Rogue. If you do have any other questions, basic or advanced, please do join the Discord where I or another member of the community would be really happy to help you where we can. And if you would like to consider it, please do consider joining my Patreon with a link below in the description for that, where you can get behind the scenes written guides and extra content, LVI profiles, blog posts and much more, including a VIP channel in Discord where you can ask me direct questions and I can help you out as a priority for anything you may need. And of course, with everyone using ad blocks, etc. these days, as a small gaming creator myself, it does really, really help support the channel. I also want to mention that it's my first time in my videos doing more advanced parts at the end of the video, and I'd love to hear your feedback on how you found that part specifically, as it is something new that I'm adding in. I want to make sure everything's covered for more beginner and digestible content, but then adding on that advanced part for those of you who may also want it. If you are looking for other specs, whether it's for Rogue or other classes, check out this playlist here because I've done all of them for you in Cataclysm.